Well, for 16 years, Adelaide man Ken Turner has been grieving his daughter Cherie and fighting the laws that let her killer walk free. Here he talks to Kelly Clappis about his journey to forgiveness and about the beautiful girl he'll never forget.
Cherie was a sweetie. She was my buddy, she was my best friend.
It was a crime that shocked the state.
The murder of Cherie Turner, whose body was found at Parkholme last Sunday morning.
The brutal stabbing of 22-year-old Cherie Turner. "16 years on, and Cherie's father Ken is still trying to come to grips with the tragedy that's torn his family apart. Ken, does time heal all wounds?
No, it doesn't. It actually, it sort of haunts you, the memories haunt you, but you also have to be strong enough to take that into captivity and not allow it to affect your life.
In June 1993, Cherie was killed after a night out with the girls.
They asked me to go to the morgue and identify the body to find out whether it was Cherie or not. And I remember driving up to the morgue from home in the police car and all the detectives there. Your mind is just ablaze with possibilities. Is it Cherie? What happened? What's going on? How did it happen? Who did it? And I remember arriving at the morgue. I was absolutely shattered. There's just no words that can explain what happened when I arrived at the morgue. I remember walking down a narrow corridor and my heart was just, I'm sure the detectives could have heard my heart beating, the anxiety of it all. They led me to a room where there was a viewing window, and they said to me that behind the curtain there will be a body on a trolley, and if I could identify who that person was.
Did you ever think that it would be Cherie?
No, you don't go there in your mind. You don't even, you live in denial at that point. But no, I didn't think it was going to be Cherie. It was just shattering. It was soul destroying to a certain extent. I remember that they opened up a little curtain in the viewing window, and I just leant it up against the viewing window and just realising that yes, it was my beautiful daughter Cherie who was laying there on that trolley, and she'd been murdered, she'd been stabbed to death.
Will you ever get over that day, that whole horrendous experience?
No, you never get over it, but you do have to deal with it.
2 years later, Frank Mercury was extradited from Victoria and tried for Cherie's murder. But after a traumatic and lengthy trial, he was found not guilty.
It was shattering. That not guilty verdict that came through the foreman of the jury was just one of total unbelief. It was shattering, not only to me, but to my family and friends and the prosecutor's department, the police department, the whole justice system basically was absolutely shattering.
Only after the trial was it revealed Mercury had spent time in a Victorian prison for an almost identical crime. But the jury here was never told, because under South Australian law, a defendant's criminal history is inadmissible.
After the not guilty verdict, it becomes public knowledge, and that's when the dark side of Frank Mercury was revealed.
Instead, Mercury walked and was free to kill again, which he did.
The news came through in 2007 that Frank Mercury had murdered his de facto wife. He'd actually shot her, and then he'd gone to another location and then shot himself through the head.
If the jury had known about Frank Mercury's prior convictions, do you believe his other victim would still be alive today?
He would have been put away in jail, and as we know, this person, Frank Mercury, has gone on to murder again. And that's why I do hold the court here in Adelaide somewhat responsible for letting him off the hook, because if they had nailed him here, he wouldn't have been able to kill again.
What makes Ken's story so compelling is that he forgave Mercury very early on.
I did it very quickly because I knew the consequences of unforgiveness. Because forgiveness is more powerful than revenge, and I've experienced that. There's a lot of freedom when you forgive somebody for such a horrendous crime such as murder.
And he's written about his experience. The Power of Forgiveness details Cherie's death, as well as Ken's journey to forgiveness.
Forgiveness doesn't let the other person off the hook. They still have to be responsible for what they do. But forgiveness is for yourself. It sets you free of all those anxieties, the hatred, the bitterness, the revenge, the retaliation.
He's also using his tragedy to teach other young people about the dangers of going out and overindulging.
You let your guard down, and unfortunately out there we know there are a lot of people like the Frank Mercuries in this world that will take advantage of that. So I throw out a warning to all the young girls in particular: be very, very careful what you're doing when you're out there in society, in the nightclubs, etc. Just be very careful.
Did his death bring some sort of closure?
It did, yeah. He's gone, and there's no way known he can hurt anybody else's little girl, because he murdered my daughter, he murdered somebody else's daughter. He's gone, he's finished. There's no more Frank Mercury. He's not going to hurt anybody else.